Hi everybody, it's Clarke Camper with the August edition of Wall Street in Washington. Today I'd like to talk about three things. First, I want to talk about some impacts from the debt ceiling negotiations and ultimate agreement. Second, I'd like to talk about lessons from that process, the debt ceiling process, for what we can expect from Washington this fall. And third, I'd like to say a few words about the time frame for CFTC derivatives rulemakings. First, in terms of the debt ceiling, well, as I've maintained all along, we did get an agreement, but clearly it was something of a Pyrrhic victory with extraordinary cost. Obviously, the Congress and the President took a real beating, not only in public opinion, but also among Wall Street opinion. One analyst that is widely followed said, I think without a whole lot of hyperbole the other day, that Wall Street had virtually lost all credibility in Wall Street's eyes. The difficulty is that obviously Wall Street is hostage to decisions that are made in Washington, and so while you might be frustrated and not want to watch what happens, that's not possible. So what I'd like to do, moving into my second topic about what we can expect this fall, I'd like to try to take some lessons from the debt ceiling negotiations and see what they say for what we can expect this fall. First, in terms of timing, one thing that we saw in debt ceiling negotiations and that I talked about all along was that I expected Congress to run out the clock as long as they possibly could so that we got an agreement essentially at the last hour. I think you'll see the exact same thing going forward this fall, particularly with regard to the super committee that is tasked with coming up with over $1 trillion in cuts. They are supposed to do that by November 23. You guessed it, I think they'll probably come up with an agreement very close to or right before November 23. Also, the full Congress, both houses of Congress, need to vote on that super committee proposal by December 23. Again, since past is prologue from the debt ceiling agreement, I think we'll find that super committee deal will be voted on very, very close to the deadline. Second, in terms of tone, I don't need to go into a lot of detail about the level of acrimony and partisan rancor around the debt ceiling negotiations. I believe, again, past is prologue, we're going to continue to see that throughout the fall. It's frustrating for all of us, but I think it's best to expect it and know how to value that as we go inevitably through the partisan mudslinging. Finally, in terms of substance, you saw that in the debt ceiling agreement, Congress and the President essentially kicked the can down the road. Sure, they made some progress, but it was not the grand bargain that many had hoped for. And again, even by kicking some of the decisions to the super committee, Congress avoided making some of the hard decisions. I think flipping forward to what we can expect, I think you'll see much of the same thing from the super committee. In other words, I don't think that you're going to see profiles encouraged. It's just not the way that the process is going to work. You're going to see the committee make some large picture decisions, but not tie down details if there's any way they can possibly kick those to future Congresses or future regulators. I should say at that point that I am, again, an optimist as a person. I'm a pessimist, though, as a professional looking at this particular situation. I think it's going to be extremely unlikely that the super committee is going to come up with a deal that will be approved by both houses of Congress. What would that mean? That would mean that then sequestration, in other words, massive arbitrary cuts agreed to under the budget deal would kick in. So I would expect that is going to happen. Again, I want to make clear we're crystal balling it at this point. A lot of things can happen in the next few months, but where I sit right now, I don't have a lot of hope for bipartisan agreement. Finally then, my third point, CFTC rulemaking. Again, as I've discussed in previous Wall Street in Washington, I think it's going to be very difficult for the CFTC to actually complete its derivatives regulation rulemakings by the end of this year. That is the time frame that's been set forth. If anything, both the political pressures and also some of the rising frustration on actual members of the CFTC lead me to believe that Chairman Gensler, again, is going to have a very, very difficult time getting agreement on the major provisions of derivatives rulemakings by the end of the year. There will indeed be some of the low-hanging fruit pieces will be picked up, and I want to make clear, I think Chairman Gensler's doing a heroic effort in terms of everything he possibly can to get those pieces of the rules finished. But on the bigger questions about the roles of CEF, around margins, Things like that, I think they're going to, again, have a very, very difficult time getting that done by the end of the year. That obviously presents challenges for those of you who need to manage through the process. But once again, I want to at least, I think the most important thing is to be armed with knowledge and be able to manage based on that. So with that, I'll wrap it up, and we'll see you next month on Wall Street and Washington.